Hey, welcome to the Freedom Real Estate Podcast with your boy Andrew Freed and my special guest, Brian Lucier. This guy is an absolute legend in our market. He's been in the Massachusetts and Rhode Island markets for upwards of 20 years. He's been the head of landlord associations, hosted the meetups, managed thousands of doors, and owns a couple hundred doors himself. Super successful investor. But what is really interesting about Brian is he doesn't only invest, he's also an artist. He started out as a musician, as a bandmate, as a marketer. Like, this guy has an artistic eye, which is very unique in real estate. So welcome, Brian. Happy to have you here.
Andrew, it's absolutely my pleasure to be here on the show with you. And I got to thank you so much. When I started my show 2-3 years ago, you were one of my first guests. And since that episode, you brought so much talent. You just supplied me with so many people that helped me project my show to where it is now in my third year. So thank you, Andrew.
It's honestly my pleasure. But I mean, you bring up a really good point. You know, you have a podcast yourself. Just to let our audience know, like, what value do you get from hosting? You're right over there? I don't want to,
Yeah, it's a car crash.
I'm assuming you get value from your podcast. What sort of value do you get from hosting a podcast, obviously, other than providing, value to your audience?
I learned something from every guest, every show, because it's following my guests down the rabbit hole. We ask the same questions, but everybody has a different story. So some people are GPs, LPs, do commercial, do industrial, short-term, long-term, all kinds of different people on the show. We have syndicators, and everybody's got their own little niche or bag of golden nuggets. So I'm always picking up something different from everybody on the show. One thing that is definitely a common is the mindset to do real estate, having that I believe I can do this mentality. And that's really jacked me up to grow the show, get a diverse number of guests doing different things on it. And I really, really enjoy it. I get just as much out of the show, hopefully, as people watching the show do.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a lot of great points, some of which are, you really get to leverage other people's best practices, right? You get to learn from the people actually making it happen.
And everybody that I bring on the show is doing it. And one of the taglines we just adopted is from beginners to billionaires. And we've had 2 different billionaires on the show. And just their mindset, I mean, their ethics, there's a common core all the way from the beginner up to that person that is managing like thousands of doors. But the mindset of, okay, this is how I'm going to do this, and I can do this. It's believing in yourself that you can actually make it happen, all the way from beginner to billionaire.
Yeah, and, I think it all comes down to, modeling, right? Like, any one of us could be that billionaire if we modeled their behavior. And that's what's great about podcasts. That's what's great about providing value to the audience. And that's what's great about having guests on your show is you get to really see what behavior they exhibit that got them to that level.
True. And I've heard Brandon Turner say this. That beginner might see that billionaire and say, wow, I'd love to be that person or do that. And then Brandon will say, be prepared what you ask for, because when you get to that level or that next plateau, be prepared, because now you're going to be solving the issues and problems at that level. I mean, that billionaire is still solving problems, but the level of problems and the weight of those problems is going to be different from that person who's maybe getting their first single-family home, doing a flip, or a 3-family. We call them triple-deckers here in New England. So it's a different level of answering the questions and dealing with the issues. So you may see somebody making $10,000 a month, $20,000, $50,000 a month, but just know that with that, there's a level of expertise and grit and temperance that has to go with it. When you get up to that level, your problems and issues that you're solving, the questions that you're solving, exponentially get bigger.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Your level of success is directly correlated to the level of problems you can solve, right? And and people also have to keep in mind, right? You build up that skill over time. Like the amount of problems I can solve now, 10 years ago, I couldn't even imagine solving those problems. Let's give you a quick example. Like, I had a deal 2 weeks before close. The bank ended up telling us we had to come up with $250,000 more, like out of nowhere, right? My former self, back when I was in college, there's no way in hell I'd be able to resolve that. Now, all I needed was a couple calls. I figured it out. I got a promissory note. I got the money. I got it to close, right? So, I think people have to keep in mind, like, they look at, me or you, and they're like, how the hell can they handle all this? Is because we built it up. We acclimated to that level of challenge over time.
Absolutely. And same thing. We just closed a 7-unit, and last minute the bank says, oh, by the way, you need 6 months of reserves. That's going to be an escrow that you can't touch until you stabilize the property. And I called him the other day, and he says, not until you come in with 7 signed leases and a debt service income ratio of 1.25 could I even access that money. And at this point, I mean, if I were 10, 15 years ago, I'd be freaking out because that's a lot of money I can't touch. But now my mindset is, okay, the money's sitting there. It's in reserves. It's safe. That's the best place it could be right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty common in lending today. Lenders coming up with interest reserves last minute. I see that time and time again. And, a good strategy to help me, negate that is, getting on the phone with the lender and understanding what their dilemma was, right? And I think one of the same exact situation happened to me. 2 weeks before close, they come up with a crazy interest reserve. So I get the lender on the phone. I'm like, what is your concern? Why did you implement this last minute? And he was like, well, you and your partner have a lot of flips going on. Your global debt service coverage ratio is all over the place. We feel better about that. I'm like, interesting. So that's your concern. How about this? How about we have one of our investors is a high level doctor, makes $1 million a year. What if they co-sign? Would that negate your concern and remove the interest reserve? And they said yes. Right. So, I think that this is a common thing I see in lending today, but I think it's also very important to kind of understand the concerns of the other side, because sometimes you can negotiate yourself out of that interest reserve.
You're spot on, because mostly commercial loans, terms are negotiable, right? You can always do that. You can put more money into the deal. Like the deal we just closed was 20% down, 80%. We probably would have gotten better terms, better rate, and a lower mortgage payment if we did 30-70. I was in Dallas with Ken McElroy's Limitless event, and Ken McElroy is now buying properties again, and he's going in 40-60, 50-50. He's putting 50% down. Why? Because he's been doing this a long time. He's way smarter than I am, and he sees, okay, so if the market does shift and the value goes down 20%, he's still 30% good on his mortgage. He's got that barrier, that buffer built in because he put more money down. Now, on this show, on this podcast, some people's jaws probably just drop, say, no, I only want to put 20% down. Well, you're thinking, okay, that's short-term money that I have to put down. But if you're thinking long-term deal, you're giving yourself protection by putting 35% down.
I mean, you bring up a lot of good points. And, I think one thing that Ken McElroy does invest in, I believe he invests in lower cap rate markets, right?
A lot in Arizona. He's got his pockets throughout the country.
Yeah, and the thing about low cap rate markets is, their debt service coverage ratio is a lot harder to achieve with the low cap rate, right? So if you have more money down, it kind of evens that out. So I definitely agree. To provide more leverage with lower cap rate markets. I mean, in our market, you're going high leverage because the cash flow can support it, right?
Yeah. The property that we bought, not to make a long story here, it was way under rents, probably 50% of what the rent should be. The debt coverage ratio was under 1.
Yep.
It was ugly. Right?
Yep.
So we had to put down the numbers, say what we're going to do, show the renovations, and how we're going to get up to over 1.25. And right now it is September 24th. We're shooting this. In 7 days is the first rent collection. We're actually going to be above water on the mortgage.
Okay, so let walk me through this deal, Brian. So what did you get it under contract for? What sort of renovations are you doing? Where are the rents now? Where were they built will be? What is it worth now? What will it be worth in the future?
All good questions. So I'll start with the deal. I'll try to just make this short. A couple of years ago, through a mailing campaign, we got a call from the owner's son. She lived in the building with her husband. Actually, they were divorced, so that was kind of weird. But the divorced husband, the stepfather of the kids, lived with the mom. He was managing the property. She owned the property. So 2 years ago, we had the conversation, and it didn't really work. It wasn't a fit. But I left the door open. So remember that. Never burn the bridge on a deal. 2 years later, the deal came back. He called me, and he asked me, would I still be interested in buying the property? I says, well, sure, no problem. His mom had passed away, and now the stepfather that nobody wanted to deal with lived in the building. So I says, okay, I'll make you an offer. Give me the rent rolls. Based on the rent rolls, my offer was $725.
For the 6 unit?
It is a 7 unit with a huge barn, opportunity to make 3 more units out of that. So potential to be 10 units.
And where? Where is it?
Leominster, Mass. Or if you're not from around here, you would call it Leominster.
Okay.
So it's a really good neighborhood. It's on a really good street. It's great location. So
Okay.
I love the property for all of that. It's a great property. Actually, historically, I think it was, I can't think of his first name. It began with an A, but Pollard. In the beginning of the 1900s, he was one of the largest fashion publishers in the country. So that's the history of the house. Anyways, fast forward to here we are. We worked out the deal. He said $725 won't work. He wanted $950. I said, based on these rents, I can't do it. $950 won't work. So I offered to take it, warts and all, deal with all the problems, raise the rents. There's a hoarding issue at the property in 2 of the units and the barn, a full barn filled with stuff that I need to deal with. That's okay. This is all part of the deal. So I took all that on. The rents should have been $1,300 and $1,800. They were $800 and $1,100. So way under market value. 7 units. There are now 4 occupied units. October 1st, those are at market rent. And just off of those 4 rents, we're going to meet the mortgage. So we're going to cover what needs to be done. What needs to be done, 2 of the units we're going to totally rehab. They're all gutted out right now. In 2 days, the electrician goes in and does one of the units. Next Tuesday, the plumber goes in and does that, and then we can put it all back together again. And we were talking in the green room before all this. Hi, everybody. I'm a perfectionist. Andrew was ribbing me about doing my own rehabs, and I'll let him poke the bear on that one. But I am a perfectionist, and I have a saying, if I can see it and you can see it, the tenant can see it. Fix it. So I'm going to save about 40 to 60 grand going in doing my renovations on this project, which, because of the debt and the debt service ratio and all that, the money I have to put into the deal, for me, it's going to make sense. For some investors, it may not make sense. You might want to hire a crew to do all that. I know my capabilities. I can run my business during the day, weekends, and sometimes after hours. I can bang this out. I'm fast. I can do that. So the rents are up. We've got 2 units we're renovating. And then the stepfather that nobody wants to deal with. This is an interesting story. I don't think he's going to watch this show, so I'll tell the story. A little bit of a rabbit hole. For 18 years, I was president of a landlord association. And my job as the president is to train Massachusetts landlords on how to do this right. Tenant landlord law, building code, sanitary code, Master General Law 186 subsection 15B, the whole 9 yards. This is how you do it. You run it as a business. You do it right. I train landlords to do this. Okay, now here we are back on the deal. I fly up from Aruba, my first time seeing the property for real. I meet the realtor outside, and she says, well, we're going to start with the stepfather's unit. It's a huge unit. They took a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, combined it together to be a 1-bedroom unit. It is gorgeous. It's got a 200-year-old fireplace about the size of this room that we're in right now. It's half of the units have their own fireplace because it's like a 200-year-old property. It has amazing charm. So anyways, she says, we're going to start in his unit, and then he's going to take us around because he's managing the property. So he says, okay. So he steps out, he looks at me, and I look at him. He says, hi, Brian. I say, hi, Ron. We know each other. He's one of the landlords I've been training for the past 18 years. So he knows I know the game. I know he knows the game. And he knows that I have to ask him to leave because he's staying in a unit which we're going to convert to a 3-bedroom, which we're going to get $2,700 for, and he's not paying rent. But I'm not being a jerk about it. I'm working with him. We're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to help him relocate.
Okay. So, I mean, hey, it sounds like that worked in your benefit, right? I mean, it sounds like you had a pre-existing relationship with him, so.
Yes, and I said it earlier, don't burn the bridges, because you never know when you're going to cross that bridge again.
Okay, so getting down to the numbers, you bought it for what, $725, right?
Actually, we had to buy it at $900 to close the deal, and I take it warts and all.
Okay, so you bought it for $900. And what's the pro forma rent once it's done? Like the market rent on this property?
It will be 13s and 18s. So when we bought it, it was $3,855. After we stabilize the property, it's going to be just north of $10,000 a month.
Okay, and then how much money will it need to get there?
We're another 40, 50K away from finishing the whole lift.
Okay, so you're essentially all in. Rent rolls 10 grand with the ability to probably add 3 to 4 more grand down the road once you convert that space to extra units, right?
Yeah, that'll probably be another $6,000 a month.
So I mean, without that additional value, it's probably a base hit. You're probably talking 8-9% return, right? But if you convert those units, you're essentially creating upwards of $400,000 of equity, right?
Yes, that's a really good point. On all my numbers, on all the appraisal and everything like that, and actually I took a tip from you on your podcast when you told me about appraisals, so I'll get to that story. But we were buying it at $900. We wrote the offer at $925, so we baked in $25K for ourselves at the closing.
Perfect.
So that worked out fine. It all worked in the numbers at 20 to 80 at $925, and we were good.
Totally.
So here we are. We're putting this whole thing together. Now the appraiser, this was a little sticky. The broker, I went in without a broker.
Okay.
No attorney, no broker. Don't do this at home, kids. Right? Listen to Andrew. Follow Andrew's advice. Don't follow my advice. I've been doing this a while. I know how to close the deal. I did all this stuff. I've got my CSL. I know how to look at a property. So
he could be a broker if he wanted to.
I saved the seller brokers the commission, which was appealing for them to offer me the deal.
Okay.
There was another gentleman who was interested in it. He'd also been on my show a couple months ago before this deal, and he said, well, if Brian's doing the deal, I'll back off. If Brian doesn't do the deal, then I'll put it in offer.
Yep.
So thank you very much, Eric. So we're at the appraisal point, and all my numbers, looking at the market, looking at other sales, I did my own comps, put this all together, put together a package, a nice little property package. And all my comps were coming in at 1.4, 1.3 million, and I'm buying it at 925. So there's a potential of 250 to 300 meat on the bone if I close this deal.
Yep.
But I didn't want to get emotional about it. It was going to work or it wasn't going to work. So here we are. I meet the appraiser. I've been doing this a long time. I know a lot of people. So here it is. So I meet the broker there. And I says, I've got this package and I'd like to give it to the appraiser. He says, I don't think you should do that. I don't think that's appropriate. He says, well, okay, I'll respect that. But my numbers are in here to show what I believe it's going to be worth after. And I've got some comps in here.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her if I could at least approach the appraiser when he got there and ask him if I could offer this information.
Totally.
Right. And you're the one who actually suggested I did that on your show with us. So thank you.
Of course.
All right. This guy saved me a lot of money. Listen to him. So here we are. The gentleman gets out of his car, starts walking to the building. I said, hey, Frank, how are you? He says, hey, Brian, how are you? We know each other. He's appraised other properties from me before. So I said, oh, yeah. And he's reminiscing, saying, oh, I remember that property you did in Gardner, the 6-unit, and you did the real nice bathrooms and the kitchens with the backsplash and all that. That's the same thing we're going to do here, but we're going to upgrade a few things, do marble, blah, blah, blah. So he already knows who I am. I already know who he is. He already knows the work I'm going to do, and he's going to look at a property that he knows I'm going to renovate.
Mm.
Okay, so the instructions were for him to give the appraisal based on the rents, which would have brought me down to that 725 number, and I'd have been putting 30-40% down. So I gave him the book, showed him the pictures, the renovations, and one of the properties that he had appraised for me, I had the pictures of that renovation. I said, remember this one? He says, oh yeah, that one and that and the backsplash and everything. So you never know who you're going to run into, and then again, don't burn that bridge. So I worked it out with the lender that he would give me both the after repair value and the current base. So they blended it in and came in at 1.1 million. So I closed with $200,000 in equity.
See, folks, that's an expert tip right there. Is when you're trying to go for a property with a debt service coverage ratio absolutely blows, you're going to want to ask for construction money. You could even ask for $50K, but that results in a before and an after appraisal where they take the market or the pro forma rents into account, allowing you to achieve the debt service coverage ratio you need to only bring 20 to 25% down. Because ultimately, if you don't do that, they're going to require Brian to bring 30, 40, 50% down on a $925,000 purchase. And that, that's the difference between $400,000 and bringing $200,000, right? And, he brought up a couple other good points, which I like to do this, in my business dealings, is I always like to build in seller credits. But not only that, I also like to build in a buyer's commission. Right? So I'm building 2% buyer's commission and 2% seller's credit. And the reason for that is because ultimately that just lowers my out-of-pocket costs, right? Like if I can borrow, 4% more at a 6.5 rate and the property's producing a 9-10% cash and cash return, the more money I leverage, that only amplifies the return. Right? So these are some strategies that I utilize. It sounds like Brian very much utilizes these strategies as well. And, they really differentiate the difference between maybe like a 1 or even a 2% cash and cash return on the property. So they really have a major effect, right? So, Brian, we're looking at you. You're obviously very experienced. You obviously had 20 years of experience, but like, let's just talk about your first deal, right? Like, what was your first deal like? Because obviously you sound like you know what you're doing now, but Brian Lucier didn't always know real estate, right?
No. Brian Lucier was an idiot when he started. We call that an ID10T error.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
idiot, right? So the first deal we ever did, we bought for $215,000. It was a 3-family in Gardner. I put $40,000 down. Do the numbers. I put way too much money down on that, but I wanted to close the deal. If I knew what I knew now, I probably would have put 20 grand down.
Sure.
But that was way back when. So we put the 40 grand down and renovated it, did some work to it. And this was back in 2001. We closed on it September 1st, 2001.
Was that the .com bust or?
10 days later, the towers came down.
Oh, yes. It's all coming back now.
We thought, oh no, what have we done?
Yeah.
We just bought a property and the world's going to hell. And then after a couple months, it stabilized out again. People were paying rent. It's like, okay, well, this seemed to be a blip on the radar as far as real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So the market was still going up at that time. We refinanced out that property twice. We took $90K out of it as the value was going up, and bought 2 more properties. The values were still going up, so we leveraged those 2 properties. So I took my 40 grand within 2.5 years and leveraged it into $1.2 million worth of assets.
Yeah, and that's called stacking, right? Using equity in real estate to buy more and more and more real estate, right? Like, you did it right, you did it smart, and ultimately, like I don't know, I mean, ultimately, that's a fantastic that's a fantastic start to your real estate endeavor.
I give all the credit to Norm LaPointe on that. He was a commercial guy, and he's the one who introduced the idea of refi cash out to us.
Okay.
He said, but you can do this in residential as well. So it's like, okay, well, and the first time you hear that, you don't know what it means. So we did that first one and said, okay, well, let's try it again. And, ended up taking 40 grand and got it up to 1.2. And then we never looked back.
And you took the strategy of, like, rather than investing in appreciation, you truly believed in cash flow. And that's primarily where a lot of your investments were, right? In Western Mass, in these Leominsters, in these Fitchburgs, in these Gardners, well, you're talking, like, back then, of course, you're talking a 10, 12, 14 cap rate, right?
Oh, it was crazy. We were buying a lot of property in Gardner. And my mentality then, I wasn't experienced, but I could see that I could buy a property cheaper and get the same rents as Leominster, where I would pay more for a property. And, the cash flow was there. It just made sense to buy those properties. In hindsight, I learned that appreciation goes slower. So if you're buying out the suburbs in these lower markets, you buy for cash flow, not so much appreciation, because the appreciation sometimes takes 2-3 times as long.
Yeah.
Or if you're buying near a metro city, your cash flow might be inverse, but your appreciation is going to skyrocket.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a lot of really good points, and I think, a lot of newer people in real estate don't realize this and actually think the inverse, right? When it comes to cash flow, people think of cash flow as an offensive mechanism, right? But to experienced investors like you and I, cash flow is purely a defensive mechanism, right? It's purely there to keep the property, to ensure it's sustained up to your satisfaction. But what you really make your wealth on is the tax benefits, the mortgage pay down, the appreciation, the forced appreciation, right? Like, that's really where you make your money. And the cash flow is essentially just ensures that your asset is self-sustaining. You don't have to feed the beast.
100%. Cash flow just pays the bills and makes sure that the property is taken care of. All those other levers are the things that you learn over time when you do real estate. Like 27 and a half years depreciation for $1 million property. That's an outrageous tax deduction every year.
Exactly.
I mean, when I was in my heyday and I owned a lot of properties, don't hate me, I was paying maybe 2 to 3% tax. Period.
Yeah, I mean, and that literally amounts to saving 30 to 40% on every dollar, right? It's dramatic. It's absolutely dramatic, right? And then where you and I really make our money is on the forced appreciation, right? Like, you and I go into these properties, like you said, you saw an opportunity that 3 units in a 7 unit essentially create $300,000 to $400,000 in equity just by making that move. Like, another common strategy you and I utilize, create additional bedrooms with the double living room situation, right? Convert attic space to bedrooms. Convert basement space to bedrooms. Like, these are all easy strategies to create value and create that equity that you can actually suck out and make a significant amount of money, right? Like, don't get me wrong, $500, $800 a month is great, right? But, when you get those 50, 100 and 150 grand checks in those cash out refis, that's what really moves the needle.
Yeah, and cash out refis are money from reinvesting.
Yep.
It's not income. You're not
Totally
paying tax on it.
Totally.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, cash out refis and loan, you don't pay taxes on that.
That's right.
You get to buy these properties, do these things called cost segregation studies where you write off 20 to 30% of the value in year one, and you can utilize that directly to offset your and mine income as real estate professionals according to the tax code. You can utilize 1031s to trade properties into other properties, deferring taxes. Like, if you're seeing a common thread here, real estate's extremely good at paying taxes, and I can assure you right now, Brian and I, like, our tax rate's probably in the single percentage digits, if not less, right?
Yeah.
Real estate's quite magical when it comes to the tax code, right? So, Brian, Brian, I think some of my last questions really revolve around the fact that you have a property management company. You manage hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm all about providing value to our audience, right? So give our audience some really cool tools or systems you utilize to manage your properties effectively.
Never forget that real estate is a people business.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a landlord, you can look at the spreadsheet, but at the end of the day, there's a person or a family living in a property that you own or manage. It may be your property, but for them, it's their home. Make it decent, keep it clean, have systems to take care of repairs. Listen to them, right? If you can treat people with decency and respect, they'll stick around a lot longer than if they have to walk home every day to the same maintenance repairs that don't get fixed. And it doesn't help your property to let deferred maintenance pile up. It's going to bite you in the rear end eventually. So run it like a business. Okay. There's two types of landlords out there. There's the landlord that gets it and runs it like a business. And then there's the landlord that runs it like a spreadsheet and doesn't consider the people. And that's always going to be painful. You're going to end up, if you don't make the repairs and it goes too far, the tenants, the first thing they're going to do when you raise that rent, they're going to call the Board of Health and call you out on all the stuff, the deferred maintenance, and now you're in a pickle. So stay ahead of that and build those relationships, not just with your tenants, with your vendors, with the municipalities, with the building inspector, with the plumbing, the wiring inspector, the Board of Health. We've been doing this so long now, we manage so many properties, say, in the Fitchburg or Gardner area, now Leominster too, Peter Niall, great building inspector in Leominster. Oh, God, there's a rabbit trail there. But anyways, have those relationships, because if they know who you are and you have a good reputation and relationship, this is going to be so much easier to do it as a business.
So, is it really a surprise that Brian brought up relationships, right? Like, he literally got that property, that 7-unit in, I believe it was Leominster, all through relationships. He got it under contract because the other buyer backed out because they respected him. He got it appraised because the appraiser worked with him in the past and knew what he did, right? And then he got this troublesome tenant out because he had a pre-existing relationship with them. Like, his business excels because he focuses on relationships, not just relationships with his vendors, but also the relationship with his tenants, right? And just to provide some practical advice on how you can translate that into your actual business, like tracking how quickly you get your work orders done, right? Like, if you get your work orders done, it takes you 20 days versus 7 days, I guarantee you're going to have way lower vacancy if you get it done in 7 days versus 20 days. Another tactic I utilize is monthly surveys to my tenants. I give them a score 1 out of 10. I ask them, how would you grade our service? And do you have any recommendations on making our service better, right? Like, these are some practical tools you can utilize to really enhance your tenant experience, ultimately lowering your vacancy and making you more money in the long run.
Yeah, all really, really good stuff. I got to give a shout out to Peter Niall, the building commissioner in Leominster. A smart thing I did before we even went under contract, I went in and visited him with my plans and drawings and said, look, I don't own the property yet, but here's what we're planning to do, phase 1. And then phase 2, we want to do something with the barn. He says, well, as soon as you touch the barn, everything needs to be sprinklered with a fire suppression system. So, okay, good to know that. But because I went in and had the conversation with him and said, when we do this, we could do this, this, or this. What do you prefer? I walked through the whole job with him before I even closed on the property. So here's the rainbow at the end of all this. When I went in to pull the permits, I had to run around town a little bit because we were converting a 1-bedroom to a 3-bedroom. You got to pay for the extra water sewage going into the city, one-time fee, all that. But anyways, there was a little bit of paperwork. But I brought the permits in all as one permit for 3 units. They said, no, this has to be 3 separate permits. So we copied it out, whited out a few things, and I submitted everything. I said, okay, here it is. When do you think I can get the permits back? And Andrew, you know that when you submit a permit, a building inspector by code has 30 days to approve or deny your permit. So the woman who was helping me looked up at the clock and says, well, we closed today at 4. Could you come back at 3:30? I got 3 permits pulled and closed within 3 hours.
Yeah.
Not because of magic or anything, but because I was upfront. I told when Peter saw those permits come across his desk, he says, "Oh, I know what this is. I know what this is." Okay, sign. I went in by the end of that day, the day that I submitted the permits, I was hanging them in the front door of the property. So thank you, Peter. You're a rock star.
It all comes down to relationships, right?
Yeah.
All right, Brian. So now we're going to do the fire round.
Bring it on.
All right, fantastic. So tell me, what 3 books in real estate could you not live without?
Robert Kiyosaki, Cash Flow Quadrant, where he talks about having a job, owning a business, being a business owner, and then an entrepreneur. Definitely that book. Michael E. Gerber, The E-Myth Demystified. That helped me immensely to figure out how to build Bel Air like a franchise prototype, something with all the systems and operations that if I wanted to, I could build the same system in several locations. Those 2 books for sure. And then, boy, picking a 3rd book, I'm gonna have to go with Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Oh, I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, that book, I read it when I was first starting to think about getting into crypto and stuff like that. He won a Pulitzer Prize in economics. So I figured, yeah, this would be a really good book to read to get an investor mindset. And I'll tell you why that book is so important to me at this point in my life. A little bit of a rabbit hole. I moved to an island 6 years ago, paid $1.65 for a condo, 5-bedroom condo overlooking the ocean. I had arrived. Real estate had got me to where I wanted to exit and be. And then I read Thinking Fast and Slow on the veranda overlooking the ocean and really got to wrap my head around the concept of loss aversion. So I have obtained the castle, the condo on the beach of my dreams. And then somebody offered me twice as much as what I paid for it cash.
Wow.
I didn't want to walk away. But now that I understood the concept of loss aversion, it made it less painful. It hurt, but it made it less painful to let go of a piece of paradise that I really enjoyed and add 2 zeros to my bank account. Now I live in the building right next door, looking at the same ocean, the same sunset, and I have 2 more zeros in my bank account. So that book, I read it to become a smarter investor. So I'll give that one the credit. So Cash Flow Quadrant, E-Myth Demystified, and Thinking Fast and Slow. And I can probably give you another score, but you asked for 3.
Good choices. All right, so Brian, if you could think back to your 20-year-old self and only give one piece of advice for them to be successful in this world, specifically in business, what piece of advice would you give them?
I got to give 2.
Go ahead.
Buy real estate, cash flowing real estate, and get a mentor to show you how to grow.
Those are great pieces of advice that I did Did you do that? Sounds like you did it as well, right?
I didn't start real estate till I was 38 years old.
But did you get a mentor?
I did. Um, my first mentor, I paid $260 for Carlton Sheets' No Money Down course and listened to every CD and only understood a third of what he was trying to explain to me. And then eventually I ended up at the, what was it called? The expo where Donald Trump was in like 2003, the Annex Expo or something like that. That's where I ran into Dave Lindahl. He became my mentor and coach for several years. Did a lot of webinars, seminars, probably spent $100,000 easily on courses and education to get to where I am now. And thank you, David. You definitely got me to that island. And you got to get a coach. And we were even talking before all this. You're jacked, and I've lost 100 pounds, and it's because Andrew has a great coach, and he does the reps and he's disciplined. So if you heard nothing else there, get a great coach, do the reps, and be disciplined.
Great advice. So now that you reached financial independence, Brian, like what's next? Like what do you do on a daily basis? What keeps you happy? Because being financially free is great, but ultimately what we are all of us are really seeking is happiness.
Happiness is tied to having a purpose in life. You have to have something to get you out of bed. And it's not always money, or it's not always the deal. It's something where you're adding value to life, to your life or to others people's lives. So for me, I've hit round circle. I started my life as an illustrator, graphic designer, doing artwork, painting, and all that. Went to Fidelity Investments, where I figured out real estate. I was reading the Performer one afternoon, the tuna fish sandwich story, and eating that tuna fish sandwich, I finally read the information that we were selling on the Spectrum Performers for 401ks, and I did the math and figured out I'd have to go back to work at 75 under a 401k. So that was the point where real estate became the focus for me. And then all the way down, bought a lot of properties, retired to an island. I don't want to say retired because I still work, but here I am on the island. And it was a moment for me to experience a life balance where 3 years ago I started painting again. And now I've been in a few galleries on the island. I enjoy the scenery, the wildlife. I see some beautiful things. You've seen some of my paintings. I enjoy it. The colors, if I had to describe myself, I'd say I was a French impressionist in the Caribbean. And I say all that to get back to the life balance, the purpose. So I have a dream and a vision, and I hope you hold me accountable on this. The pieces are already coming into place. I live on an island where the population is 500,000 people, and there are 3 orphanages. And that blows my mind that with 500,000 people, there can actually be an orphanage, let alone 3. So in the art community in San Nicolas, they do this event called Art Table, which is fantastic. It's like a sip and paint type thing. It's a long table, canvas on end, and like 50 canvases being painted, and the edges have to blend together. And they do that as a fundraiser to promote the gallery. I want to flip the script and do Art Table at the orphanage and just let the kids be kids. Make a mess. Spill the paint. Get paint on your clothes. Have fun. Be a kid for a day. And that is driving me, and I'm getting goosebumps telling the story. I've already met with the director of the orphanage. I've got 4 rock star artists on the island, like icons on the island, who said they're all in. They will absolutely show up and paint with the kids for the day. So I've got a few more pieces to put together, and I want to put this all together, Art Table at the orphanage for the kids. And then the kids can either keep the painting and remember something. Maybe it'll spark them to do something creative in their life, or The kids who want to, we can gather up the paintings, do an auction, and have this be a perpetual thing.
Mm.
So I would love to see that happen. So for me, that's a purpose that I have now that I'd love to see happen, because I see what art has done for me, and it's so funny to see the whole thing full circle now. Art led me into real estate, led me to an island, back to art, and now am I going to start a cycle in somebody else's life where they can do real estate or do art, something to give back? You get to the point where you've achieved, and now it's time to give.
What a beautiful purpose. What a beautiful purpose. So Brian, now that we learned all about you, tell people where they can learn more about this beautiful man, Brian Lucier.
Wow, beautiful man. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I've got a couple different entities. I've got a couple different businesses. For property management, it's belaire.co, BELAIRE.co. We manage properties in the northern Worcester County area. We have offices in Massachusetts, Los Angeles, and Aruba. We've got some rentals down there as well. My holding company is BHB Group. That's how I run the podcast. And then the podcast is the Why Not Real Estate podcast. And I got to give props to Andrew here because he helped me get that show off the ground. And now we're up to 125 episodes. And I love it. I love it because it's another way for me to give back from what I've learned. And I've had some rock stars on there. As I mentioned, we've had 2 billionaires on the show already.
That's nuts.
And they're happy to give back because they have that mindset. So if I can be there and share that mindset, I'd love to do that.
125 episodes. I'll have to come on sometime again.
Again, yes.
Probably run out of guests at this point.
You know, I got to give him some props here because when he first came on, he was still a W-2. I think you were at 130 units.
I was at, I think 18.
Buildings.
No, I think I was at 18 units.
Okay, so now he's around 500 units, probably more, right? And this has been 2 years?
Since our last, 2.5 years or so.
It's been about a 2-year span that we've had this rocket fuel growth. When I was doing the show, I was happy to just stay on the island. But then all the Andrew Freeds in my life that came onto the show, it's like all these people are doing deals. And now I'm back here in the United States doing deals. So we'll see where this ends up. I see the market changing now. This is going to be the third market cycle I've been in. And the interest rates just dropped. And when the market does shift and it becomes a buyer's market again, this is going to be a millionaire maker market. And it's coming. I don't think it's here yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, great advice. And I just want to thank Brian for coming on the Freedom Real Estate Podcast, and I'll catch you later.